Fort Bragg's just a unique place.
Everything is interlinked in the ecosystem.
Department of Defense actually believes in conservation, and we talk about two pillars for operation readiness, and it's primarily military training and environmental. And so the two work hand in hand.
The Department of Defense invests in science that helps them support military installations. And so they invested in us because we're helping them understand what is the future, not just of Fort Bragg, but for bases around the United States as well as around the globe.
I'm really tuned into all the different species out here, and it kind of makes me feel at home. So every bird has its own song, and people that are kind of geeky like me can identify all the different sounds in the forest. The red-cockaded woodpecker is important because it's a keystone species in the longleaf pine ecosystem. It is a keystone species because it excavates longleaf pine. It excavates in live pine trees. And it's an endangered species. It's been on the endangered species list since the early 70s, and it's what we're studying here on Fort Bragg. I'm the RCW Monitoring Program Coordinator for the Endangered Species Branch on Fort Bragg. The reason it excavates in longleaf living pine trees is because it creates resin. The resin that flows down and it creates this candlestick appearance. And what that's said to do is prevent predators such as snakes from climbing into up the trees and getting into their cavities. These cavities that they excavate provide habitat for up to 27 other vertebrate species and a whole slew of insect species, such as honeybees. So it really provides habitat for a whole bunch of other species that wouldn't be able to create their own nesting substrate. Other species often utilize them after the trees have gone inactive. Owls use them quite a bit to nest in. Some kestrels, American kestrels, use them. Okay, that's good.
Forestry and wildlife programs have been on military installations for decades. It's a federal law that mandates there has to be forestry and wildlife programs on military installations. Programs for rare and endangered species came a little bit later. My name is Jackie Britcher, and I'm the Chief of the Endangered Species Branch on Fort Bragg. Fort Bragg's been here since 1918, and there were studies done multiple decades ago that showed basically Department of Defense is short military training lands. So another reason to take care of the environment, whether it's environmental, rare and endangered species, the forest, all the different parts, is because the military is not going to get additional training lands. So our programs make the habitat better for the species so they could have fewer restrictions so they could train more.
We have 52 plants on Fort Bragg that are rare in some way. Each of these plants has a different conservation status, and the one that we're concerned with most here are federally endangered plants, and we have 3 of those. We're in one of the drainages in the longleaf pine forest where one of the rare plants grows that we manage. This one is petitioned for federal listing, and it's probably the most interesting plant we have on Fort Bragg, the Venus flytrap. Sometimes they'll be kind of hard to notice, but the closer you get to the ground, you'll start seeing what look like to me little eyelashes on the ground. And so these eyelashes are actually the hairs that keep the insects from escaping once the trap closes. What makes them so interesting is that they're carnivorous. They capture their prey instead of getting it from the ground. They get the nutrients from the prey. They get nitrogen primarily. Other plants get nitrogen from the ground. There's another set of plants that are called species at risk plants, and this is a category that's been designated by the Army, and it's because they have the potential to cause training restrictions if their conservation status elevates. Another carnivorous plant. There are 2 types of pitcher plants here. These pitchers fill up with water, insects go into the pitchers and slowly dissolve, and the plants will absorb nutrients that way. This is a highly specialized site. These plants are not that common.
We're standing here in the middle of a St. Francis Satyr butterfly site. This is a site we did restoration on 3 years ago. Restoration work entails going in, we go in, cut some of the timber out, we thin it out. Doing that, it gets more light to the ground and allows these sedges that we have all around us to flourish, which is the butterfly's host plant. This butterfly is found on Fort Bragg, nowhere else in the world. It's limited to less than 200 acres total habitat. Of that, really 20 to 30 acres is really good stuff with lots of butterflies. It's extremely rare. It's our job to protect it. We feel like if it's lost here, it's gone forever. This butterfly is a disturbance-dependent species. So there's two disturbances that we've documented that are very important for this species, for this habitat. One is beavers and one is fire.
Well, this is an endangered ecosystem, so only 3% of the original amount of longleaf pine forests remain today. It's important to maintain the future of all of this imperiled ecosystem. The only way to do that we see is with fire.